Today, we're looking at a red ink by Atramentis, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Oriental Red. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you're only interested in certain parts, you can skip around. But if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here and like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Jinhao 51A with a fine nib. I used it to write for a day. I then used it to take the notes for this video. I always standardize some of my writing samples by using Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although I do use more papers, and some of those will be seen later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is just a little bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, some very minor peppering of shading, very minor, 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show minor color variation, although it doesn't show in the medium, it does show slightly in the extra fine. Tomoe River, with no bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting, or normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 11 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 17 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get it. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very light peppering of shading. Only a couple spots that show up a little bit darker, but it is there and it's rare for reds. 10 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine does show color variation, the medium shows none. And we did get some in the extra fine and none in the medium. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds, and we see a good prime red. It pushes immediately away from water and pushes its way straight up, very uniform tone the whole way except the very bottom of it that's lighter just from the water. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes. You see the faintest of line on the bottom that it's trying to bond with that filter paper a little bit, but other than that, then it basically looks the same as the first chromatography. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. No surprise based on the chromatography, looking at the highlighter, there's quite a bit of blowout that occurs when it gets highlighted, even 3 days later. Now, this means I would not use it in a note-taking situation if I want to go back and highlight. Water is reactivating. It's starting to show the white of the paper coming through. Water is all that it took for it to get out of my pen. Pen flush does everything that water does, nothing more because it doesn't have to do anything more. We do see that the flush is completely breaking it down, even though you're not going to need that getting it out of your pen. 1/3 bleach solution, talking about useless, completely obliterates it from the page. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link a video where I show how I test it and how I calculate the data. The Atramentis Oriental Red has a viscosity of 2.12, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Oriental Red has a dry time of 12 seconds, making it a fast-drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Oriental Red, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice black ink, and I chose Elixir's Black. The second writing sample is done on Life, Apica CD, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life paper. Now we get no bleeding, no real ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 10 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine does show some color variation, the medium shows none, but we got none in either of them. About Apica CD notebooks. Well, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very light peppering of shading that occurs, like the K or the B or the H. Little bits there, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Far left to far right, the extra fine does show a tiny bit of color variation, which is that very little peppering we get. The medium shows a little bit of color variation, but we didn't get any for the medium. And last up is Franklin Christoph paper, with no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of the Atramentis Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Oriental Red? It's a little bit lighter than I would prefer. It can offer some shading. It looks nice on the page. It's very well behaved. There's everything good about it, but it's just off in tone for me. But it's a very nice ink. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I prefer to use a very wet pen with this so that I can put down a nice, intimidating, dark red. For some reason, that's just the one that I prefer. I put out a new ink review every single day so that if you're not already subscribed, I'm going to remind you, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.